Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So last week, I got a call from your right-hand man, Nate Smeltz. He's like, Ryan, I know we can talk about anything, and I'm really happy that we're doing this, but I was looking through all the bios on Tuned In, and it's like Jimmy Pitaro cured cancer, Jay Marine, the first guy to walk on the moon since Neil Armstrong, Louis Silberwasser lost the NBA. It's not all going to be negative, right?
Great intro, great intro.
That is like kind of the elephant in the room. It's the first season coming up, no NBA on TNT for a long time, but you guys have fortified with a lot of other rights. So can you tell me about what you did to kind of fill in the gaps, so to speak, of adding new sports, leagues, tournaments, etc.?
Yeah, great. Listen, I think for us, we embrace change, right? And I think the story of sort of the NBA and TNT is sort of well known. We're very proud of the relationship we had, the partnership we had with the NBA, the content that we did, and we really wish them the best, and we're rooting for them for sure. They have great partners going on, and so I think that's going to be a great story as well. And as I said, we took the opportunity with this change to really redefine our portfolio. And if you really sort of take a little bit of a step back, what we've done is to be able to have in many ways, a more robust portfolio than before. We have more breadth now in terms of sports, so we've added new sports that we didn't have before. We added tennis, for example, with Roland Garros and the French Open, which was a fantastic sort of first opportunity for us last May. We added NASCAR, so NASCAR now into motorsports, for example. We added Unrivaled, which is a women's basketball new league. And then we added depth to our portfolio. We added a big investment in women's sports, and Unrivaled is part of that investment. You know, Roland Garros is part of that investment in women's sports as well. And we added a lot of college sports, and that is a major vertical for us going forward. And if you really think about sort of our investments in college sports, we went from having sort of the NCAA tournament, you know, in jointly with CBS, to now having in cooperation with ESPN, we now have the college football playoffs, we have Big 12, and we have Big East. So the investment in college sports now becomes much more important and robust in our portfolio. So when everything is said and done, and we were sort of doing the numbers the other day, we now have about 50% more hours of sports in a calendar that is much more active and robust through the year. And when you put on top of that sort of Bleacher Report and House of Highlights as a way of digital sports brands that are sort of companion to all of these sports, it is a pretty strong portfolio, and for us, gets us very excited about the future.
There was someone who said recently that the NBA is a highlights league. You guys have House of Highlights. Do you think that you can still like benefit from the relationship in that way?
Well, absolutely, and we couldn't agree with Adam more. I think for us, House of Highlights and Bleacher Report, part of the beauty of those digital sports brands is that it allows people to come and watch highlights not only from the NBA, but from other sports as well. And we just recently did a deal with the NFL for those highlights. And again, you know, I think it doesn't take the value out of the sort of the live games, but it is a way to be able to enjoy sports in a much more comprehensive way. And given sort of people's attention spans today, how do you reach young viewers? For us, those digital sports brands are extremely important in the future.
This is my last negative
Go ahead.
Slanted NBA question, I swear. So you guys are licensing inside the NBA to ESPN, and recently Charles Barkley was asked about this, and he says, I'm not going to try to do his voice because I'd mess it up, but TNT just sucks, to be honest with you. They made this deal. They haven't told us when we're going to work. They haven't told us how it's going to work. What's your reaction when you see him say that and it just gets spread everywhere?
Well, Charles is Charles. I mean, I think, and he is the personality that he is because of the way that he, in many ways, expresses what comes to his mind. And it is one of the reasons why he's so good at the end of the day, right? When he is on Inside the NBA or on March Madness with us, you know, people come to sort of see that authenticity and that engagement that he has. I don't take things that he says very personally. I mean, I think we would be on medication if every time he says something like that, we have to sort of take it personally. But I do think that the relationship with Charles is very strong. Listen, at the end of the day, you have to sort of step back a little bit and think about the change that is happening, right? So, we understand the anxiety and we understand sort of the need for everything to be sort of the same as it was before. But it's not going to be the same as it was before in many ways, right? We're producing the show for ESPN. What I can guarantee everybody is that it's going to be the same show. It's going to be the same values and the same DNA that the show had before. It's going to be in a different network. That creates a little bit of questions from everybody inside TNT, and we've been able to answer those questions. And as we get closer to air, I think people will feel that we're on our way to delivering a great show to the audience.
So I'm not breaking news to anybody, but we live in a wild business. And so you guys have been planning for Warner Brothers Discovery to split, where one side will be the studio and HBO Max streaming assets, and then the other side is going to be TNT, TBS, the linear cable networks. And then there's a report last week in the Wall Street Journal that said that Paramount, backed by the Ellison family, is preparing a majority cash bid for all of WBD. So now, all of a sudden, if that happens and it passes through, then the company doesn't get split up. But when you see a report like that, does your imagination run wild about the possibilities of Paramount, CBS, and TNT Sports, and what type of scale you guys would have if that was all put together?
I'm going to borrow a line from my colleague Eric Shanks, which is great question, but no answers. Listen, I think just, on a serious note, I think it is speculation. What we now have a plan, as you said in the beginning of the question, is to sort of separate the company into two very viable companies going forward, and we're excited about that plan. One of the things that gets us very excited about sort of living in many ways TNT Sports in a more streamlined company is that sports becomes a key part of that new company. And we're aligned with sort of the future CEO Gunnar to be able to invest more in sports. One of the things that we are also excited about is the idea that we are going to develop our own streaming service. We've signaled to the market that, and that's going to come. And we have a full team sort of working on a TNT Sports streaming service. So being in this sort of new environment allows us to be able to get the resources that we need to be able to invest in more sports, for example, continue to invest in talent and production, continuing to make our portfolio much more robust, our digital properties more robust, and in many ways sort of own our own destiny with regards to streaming as well. So, whatever happens at a corporate level, I'm not going to comment, but I think right now we're focused on what we need to do and set up for success as we go through this year and in the future as the company splits.
One thing that you guys have that I was very fascinated by is the college football playoff sub-licensing is going to expand next year. And so whereas last year and this year, I believe you have 2 games from ESPN. Next year, it's going to be 5, including a semifinal game. Those games that, like a college football playoff semifinal, is probably going to get a bigger audience than any NBA game that you guys have had recently. Do you think that that deal is kind of being underrated in terms of like what its scale could be?
Well, we're extremely excited about that set of rights. The sort of having, as you said, we have 2 first-round games this year. We have sort of 5 next year, including the semifinal. It is a very good partnership that we have with Jimmy and his team at ESPN. And not only the semifinal will do great, but even the first-round games are going to be numbers and the quarterfinals that we didn't see with the NBA. So we're excited about that. If you really think about sort of our investments in college sports, and if you think about the fact that for us, March Madness and the NCAA basketball tournament, now we're going to have the college football playoffs. We're the only company that has sort of a foot on both the most prestigious college tournaments in the United States, right? The most anticipated college tournaments. We have a hand on college football playoffs, and we have a part on March Madness. So that is a very exciting place to be for TNT Sports. And then when you add sort of our additional investments in Big 12 and Big East, I think that sort of complements the portfolio in a very good way. So college for us, we see it as a growing area and something that for us is a good sort of bus to drive.
You mentioned Unrivaled earlier. So the NBA and the WNBA are maybe about to have some labor issues on the WNBA side. Unrivaled kind of just popped up seemingly out of nowhere, and then all the players really have gushed about the compensation and the way that they feel that they're treated like stars. As you kind of invest in a startup like that and get a chance to build a league from scratch, how much does it mean to have a positive relationship with all of the players?
Very important. I mean, we're super excited about sort of what's going on with Unrivaled. And I think one of the things why we not only decided to be sort of the broadcaster, but also investing in the league itself, you know, they have tremendous management. The concept, I think it's pretty strong because it's not sort of yes, it is a startup, but it's starting with professional WNBA players, right? So these are players that are at the top of their game. We have great names in the rosters. They have really good relationships and already deals signed with the top college NIL players. So the future is very bright for that league. And it is a league that very well lives side by side with the WNBA, right? And it's a different format. It's it's faster in a way. So we love it, in many ways. And I think it's part of this idea that we can have more variety in our offering. And at the same time, with regards to women's sports, it's a very big investment for us, in addition to what we have now with U.S. Soccer, for example. U.S. Soccer, we have the men's and the women's national teams. And in Roland Garros, for example, the women's sort of draw is also very important. So when you combine all those things together, now TNT Sports has a pretty viable offer with regards to women's sports.
One of the things that I don't think gets talked enough about is your baseball studio show. So, everybody says Inside the NBA is great. Everybody says College Game Day is great. I kind of think that your baseball studio show is the best show that nobody says is the best show. How do you respond to that compliment?
Well, since you haven't given me too many compliments today, then I would take that. Now, listen, I do think that it's a great show, and we have great talent, starting with Pedro Martinez, for example. And we're looking forward sort of to the baseball postseason this year, and it's shaping up to be very, very well for us because we have the National League, and we have some great teams that are running for it. But the show itself, and I think this is something, and I think you're right, I mean, Inside the NBA sort of gets the bulk of the accolades and the attention. But if you look at our hockey show, for example, it's great as well. And the baseball show, it's great as well. And they have that same DNA that I think characterizes TNT Sports. We are doing it again now with Big 12, for example, and we're going to do it with basketball as well, with college basketball. And I think what we try to do, and this is sort of a testament to the team in Atlanta led by Craig, is that we tend, or we believe really strongly that the fact that the people who should watch our shows are not just sort of sports fanatics, right? That they're looking for the X's and the O's and the more sports basic stuff. We really believe in attracting a casual fan base. And I think our shows tend to be in many ways more entertainment driven, and the talent is, in many ways, we let them be who they are, and they're more authentic in many ways. And I think you see that in many of the shows that we have. So I'm glad you feel that way about baseball, but I think it's across the board on TNT.
And you guys are also adding the Savannah Bananas, which we haven't even talked about yet. What is the secret sauce that just makes them so popular? I mean, they go and sell out the Clemson Stadium and Yankee Stadium 2 nights, and you can't get a ticket. You can't even physically buy one. They're a phenomenon almost unlike anything we've ever seen.
Yeah, listen, I think we're always on the lookout for, and it's not exclusive on us, right? So it's Savannah Bananas is in many other places as well. But we love the idea that again, if you think about your consumer base as sort of a casual sports fan, then things like Savannah Bananas make sense, right? So it's a little fun, family-oriented, and it is sort of rooted in sports, but it's not necessarily sort of a premier sports league. And I think it's good for us to be able to have that variety as well. And, and we've done other things that are in many ways sort of opportunistic, right? We did a pretty great deal with DAZN, for example, to broadcast the FIFA Club World Cup. And we brought in sort of the best of what we have in terms of the production values, and we hired great talent, for example, and we were able to bring something to the viewers very unique, in a very unique way of seeing it. And so we're always sort of looking for those things that allow us to, clearly we have sort of our core components, but I think surrounding this with sort of other tournaments as well, it's very important.
So this football season, I mean, you can't go 25 minutes without seeing a press release about record ratings and viewership or whatever. Hockey hasn't been going in that direction. What needs to be done for the arrow to start pointing back up with the NHL?
Well, I mean, I think that what I would correct you is the fact that I think there's no question that last year was soft, right? But that wasn't the trajectory. Like when we sort of got the rights a few years ago, I mean, the ratings were up, us versus the sort of the previous rights holder. And I think we've had a great ride. And, I think last year was a little bit of an anomaly, and I think this is sort of no big secret, but some of the biggest teams in hockey didn't make it to the playoffs. And when you have that going on, the ratings will suffer. And that will.
So you're saying they should rig it for the original six in the big markets?
I don't think anybody has that power. But in any case, it would happen in any league, right? If the most popular teams don't make it to the playoffs, the ratings will suffer. So we'll see what happens this year. We're excited about it. Hockey is the NHL is a fantastic league for us. It's our year-round league. Again, we've invested a lot on the production side of the business and talent as well. And we get to crown a champion every other year with the Stanley Cup champion. So it's something that we're very proud and we're extremely happy about.
So here's a really hard question. It's kind of akin to, do you want to win the lottery? If there's an NFL package that comes up either with more international games or there's 4 more coming into the market in this NFL Network ESPN merger, if it goes through, is that something you might be interested in?
Yes, we're always interested in premium sports. At the end of the day, the deal has to be right, and for us and for the league. But the NFL is one of the most important league in the United States. I understand that they're looking at international sort of development as well, and us as a company, we have a pretty big international presence as well. But we'll see.
For Bleacher Report, how do you decide editorially how much to do the coverage based on sports that you have rights for versus sports like the NFL where you don't have rights, but that's where a huge amount of the kind of pie chart of American interest is?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because part of the appeal of Bleacher Report and House of Highlights is that it is not totally rooted on one sport. When you're a rights holder, you have certain benefits, right? So your ability to have access is better. Your ability to have sort of a more robust package of highlights, in-game highlights, it's much more robust than when you're not. But Bleacher, it's more than that. It's really about the conversation around the sports. And one of the things that we noticed a few years ago is that, for example, the NFL Draft Day was the most visited day in Bleacher Report. And we didn't have any rights for the NFL. So, people want to be able to have access to players, to see what they think, to highlights in some cases, to the conversation, to social, like, you like this team, I don't like the team, I like this or that. That whole social conversation is really the big value behind Bleacher Report and House of Highlights. And so we want to be able to have a good package of rights that allows Bleacher to have the access and the conversation and stimulate that conversation. But we're very much agnostic in terms of we don't have to have the rights. Like college sports for us, some of the conversations that are happening with the different conferences, we don't have the rights. And the traffic is incredible on Bleacher Report on those things. So having rights is helpful, but it's not the key to the game here. I mean, that's why Bleacher is really good, is because it sort of expands beyond that.
Every year with the NCAA tournament, we see those like studies where it's like, it cost America 1 billion hours of lost productivity. I'm a big proponent of live sports on weekdays costing America lost productivity. And I think in the work from home era, there's probably room for a lot more. But did you see that with like when you expanded into the French Open? You're like, oh, there's more people who can, you know, watch these daytime sports while working at home than certainly would have been true a generation ago?
I would say that sort of the pandemic and the idea that people got more used to working from home has helped. I mean, I don't think it's the basis of a strategy, but you know, we've seen it. You know, we see it as sort of the first week of the March Madness tournament, and we see it because we have March Madness Live, the app, and people come in, especially those first days, and we can see, and we actually have some very cool things in the app that I think it's called the boss button, where like you're supposed to be working but you're not, and you just click that and your screen changes. And we have fun with that, but I think at the end of the day, live sports is what's really most important, right? So clearly the audiences at nighttime and prime time are going to be better, but you know, we have had great experience with March Madness, and I think you're right about the French Open. That allows us to have so many hours during the day, and depends on the match itself, but we were very pleased with the type of audience that we got, not only on the weekends, but during the week.
Are there any sports rights that are coming up in the coming cycle that you're interested in? Please give away all your plans to your competitors who are in the room.
No, so I think what I would answer is we're always interested in making our portfolio more robust. And this is sort of a line that we've always said, you know, we want to be responsible about it as well. But I think our portfolio today is in a really good place, and I think it's in a very healthy place as we go forward. But we're always going to be looking at sports rights that are available. We love what we have now. You know, our relationship with and our partnership with leagues, whether it's the NCAA. Now we're embarking with college football playoffs, NHL and MLB, are very, very important relationships for us and rights. And we have, in many ways now, with more sports. We're now in motorsports, and we're now with soccer with the U.S. Soccer Federation. So we're very happy with sort of the portfolio that we have now, but we'll always be sort of a buyer in many ways, at least on the table, trying to analyze whether those rights make sense for us or not.
Over the last 5+ years, sports gambling has obviously made a big impact in marketing and sponsorship money that's available to you. I'm kind of interested, do you have any data that shows that people who bet on games are more likely to watch them? Because I kind of feel like some of the offerings that you have, especially, you know, French Open, like people probably more likely to watch that if they have a bet on it. NCAA tournament, we know people have bets on that. But do you have any data that shows that this has helped your aggregate viewership in any sports?
I think what we have, I think the answer is yes. I think there's enough evidence there that especially young fans that are sort of very active in betting tend to engage in a higher level with sports. And you know, I guess the anecdotes that I've seen is like sometimes even a game where maybe it's not close, that many people in the past would basically just tune out. Here, a lot of young people are staying because it may have an impact on whatever they bet, right? And that's important, and we know that. And then the other one on NHL, for example, we did a data cast as an alternate cast, and the purpose of that was to be able to provide viewers with a different view on what the game was based on data, and again, data that they would use for betting purposes. So I think there is enough evidence there that says that this is another way that young people are sort of engaging with sports and doing other things at the same time.
Thank you very much, Luis. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.